Cruising speeds on a boat change based on a couple of different things like the type of boat that you have and the engine that is on that boat. But usually 3 main factors decide what is the right cruising speed for you and your boat, being efficiency, weather conditions, and time constraints. You could obviously throw comfort into the discussion there, but we'll just let that one be said and focus on the other 3 factors. So in general, cruising speed will be related to your engine RPM, which like we said can vary based on the type of boat and engine that you have, with 3 main types of engines out there being diesels, inboards, and outboards, which usually run on gasoline, which is important to understand because each type of engine can vary on the average max wide open throttle range that it has based on the different style of engine that it is. For instance, a diesel engine in a boat can have a wide open throttle from 2000 RPM all the way up to 4500 RPM, whereas an inboard will usually range somewhere from 4000 RPM all the way up to 5500 RPM, and an outboard can range anywhere from 5000 wide open throttle to 6500 RPM at wide open throttle. Usually this is directly related to the horsepower of the engine, but not always. So you can see a lot of differences there based on the different types of engines, but you can decide which one is right for you based on the type of engine and the horsepower that you have on your boat and what its max RPM range is, because that number will come into play here in a little bit. But we've also got to factor in the type of boat, which is mainly determined by the shape of the hull and how it rides through the water. For instance, a displacement hull which doesn't plane out and ride on top of the water, but instead pushes through the water, hence displacement, is going to have a lower cruising speed versus a planing hull that does plane out and rides on top of the water, giving it less drag, giving it more efficiency. And we can drive this discussion even deeper into different types of boats like pontoon boats, center consoles, bow riders, cabin cruisers, sailboats, trawlers, many different types of boats that are going to have many different variances in the way that they perform in the water based on this planing hull versus displacement hull. Sorry to take you away from the video, but real quick, if you like this kind of information, you can check out a boating community in the link in the descriptions below, as well as the pinned comment. We have a school community with all kinds of boaters doing all kinds of projects with their boat, where we're all talking about different projects that are going on their boats. You can check that out using the link in the description in the comment below. But let's talk about planing hulls first. So there is a thing called planing speed for planing boats, and this is simply the speed at which your boat will be either on plane riding on top of the water, or it will fall off a plane and then be pushing through the water. A lot of boats will have a planing speed somewhere between 10 and 20 miles per hour based on the type of boat and the shape of the hull, as well as an engine RPM from 2500 RPM to 3500 RPM, depending on the engine package that is on the boat. This comes into play because whenever you are running anywhere near the speed or engine RPM on your boat, this is not the most fuel efficient speed to be running the boat at, because the engines are going to be working harder to either keep the boat on plane or working harder to get the boat onto plane. Simply put, they're going to be burning more fuel trying to accomplish a job. But once you get the boat planed out, somewhere between this speed and your max wide open throttle speed of the boat is going to be your cruising speed. Then when it comes to displacement hulls though, the boat never planes out, so the boat is always pushing through the water. So your cruising speed is going to be more directly related to the fuel efficiency of how much fuel you are burning in the boat, as well as how fast you really want to go in that boat. Instead of between 2 different, let's call them run modes, being your planing speed and wide open throttle. Now, one other thing that needs to be put into this equation is between your stern drives and your outboards, because a stern drive and an outboard give us the ability to change the trim or the angle of the propeller in the water. This is important because with this ability, we can now change the angle or the momentum of the boat and how it is moving through the water, or we can basically get more of the boat to come out of the water when running. Most of you probably already know this information, but it's important to include it. So in quicker terms, if you have your boat and your propeller, and the propeller is facing down in the water, it is going to make the bow of the boat come up. That is going to reduce the drag of the boat in the water or increase its efficiency. There is a point in time when this efficiency goes away and the boat is going to perform worse, but you will find a sweet spot of trim and what angle that propeller needs to be in order to increase the efficiency of your hull. So you can increase your cruising speed with a little bit of trim, increasing your fuel economy efficiency, and lowering your engine RPM and finding that sweet spot with a little bit of trim to your engine. Whereas with displacement hulls and boats, you really don't have this luxury because it just is what it is with the boat and you can't change it. Now that you have a good understanding of all these different things though, let's talk about some average cruising speeds based on different types of boats. Now obviously with more engine power, better propellers, faster designed hulls, you're just going to have faster cruising speeds. But for the vast majority of all the boats out there, let's say 80% of the boats on the water, these averages are gonna hold pretty true. So if you have a speedboat or a boat designed for speed, you're just gonna have higher cruising speeds. But for your average center console boat, your typical cruising speed that balances speed and fuel efficiency is going to be between 35 and 45 miles per hour. And I'm gonna go ahead and give all these numbers in miles per hour instead of knots, because for the vast majority of people out there, it's just easier for them to understand miles per hour opposed to knots. And a lot of people still have their chart plotter set up to display miles per hour instead of knots. But this range of 35 to 45 miles per hour is going to be relevant with the exception of one thing, being the third factor that we talked about here in the beginning, being the weather conditions or the water conditions to be safely running the boat. If it's blowing 40 miles per hour and you're dealing with 10-foot waves, running the boat at 40 miles per hour is probably not going to be efficient or safe for the vast majority of center console boats out there, and this should probably go without saying for the rest of the boats that we talk about today. Because this is clearly going to alter your fourth factor, being the comfortability and the experience of everyone on the boat. Again, this should probably go without saying though. Now the typical cruising speed for a bass boat is going to be kind of similar, because it's going to be between 35 and 50 miles per hour, though this one is going to have a lot of variance to it because there are a lot of bass boats out there that are hitting those 70s, 75, 80, even into the 90s max wide open throttle speeds. So if you can cruise 90 in your boat, you could probably cruise comfortably in the 60s to mid 60s given the weather and water conditions. Bass boats just have this variance in there because there are so many of them out there that vary from wide open throttle speeds, and they can get all the way up into those higher speeds based on the type of boat and engine package that they have. A comfortable cruising speed for most pontoon boats typically falls in the 18 to 25 mile per hour range, which is ideal for a relaxed boating experience, which is what most pontoon boats are generally designed for. Cruising around and socializing at slower speeds with a lot of people on the boat, usually all moving around and playing around as well. But I will throw this disclaimer out there with companies like Bennington, who have come out with $300,000 pontoon boats with twin V10 400s on the back of them. Your cruising speeds are probably going to be a little bit higher, but for the rest of the pontoon boat market out there, cruising speeds are usually going to be in that 18 to 25 mile per hour range. Your typical cruising speed for a bow rider boat though, depending on the size and the engine, is going to be from 20 to 35 miles per hour, and these are typically your inboard lake style boats. Though a lot of newer bow riders are coming with outboards and seeing the cruising speeds closer to those of a center console in the mid 30s to low 40s, because the hull shape and design of a bow rider versus a center console really isn't all that much different. If you have inboards, you're probably in that 20 to 35 mile per hour range, and if you have an outboard, you're probably in that 35 to 45 mile per hour range, again depending on the size of the boat and the horsepower of the engine. Honestly, most inboard boats are probably going to fall with a good cruising speed around the 25 to 30 mile per hour range. But those are for the inboards that have a planing hull design, because for a displacement hull, it's usually going to be quite a bit less. Where most cruisers, trawlers, sailboats, and other displacement hulls will have a cruising speed somewhere between 8 to 15 miles per hour. But just like the weather and water conditions, these cruising speeds are more factored off of fuel burn or fuel efficiency than they are in actual speed. Because based on the type of boat that you have and the engine that you have, you will generally like to figure out where you like to run your boat based on your wallet. It's the old how fast can you actually afford to go type of situation, because for most cruisers, sailboats, and other ones, based on the water conditions and the weather conditions, you really figure out where you like to run your boat based on where you're going, because you're traveling in a longer distance. But that's going to be it for your most common average speeds based on different types of boats. You let us know what speed you like to run your boat down in the description below, as well as what kind of boat you got with the types of engines that are on the boat.